The arrival on a cold, silent night. A spaceship raced through the darkness between stars. The ship was small, old, and shaking as it entered the atmosphere of a lonely planet. Alarms screamed inside. Fire burst along the sides. The pilot, a human, named Daniel, gripped the controls and tried not to panic. Daniel was not a hero. He was not even a soldier. He was a gardener, sent to study alien plants for a peaceful mission. But now, his ship was breaking apart. Sparks flew. The air was hot and thick. Daniel looked at the small picture of his family taped to the dashboard. He whispered, "Please let me make it." With a terrible crash, the ship hit the ground. Metal screamed and twisted. When the noise stopped, Daniel lay still for a moment. Everything was quiet to quiet. He opened his eyes and saw smoke curling around him. Somehow, he was alive. He crawled out of the broken ship. The sky above was full of strange, shifting lights, like colored clouds dancing. The air was cold and smelled like iron. Daniel shivered and looked around. The landscape was empty and gray. There were no animals, no plants, no cities, just ends, sharp hills. Daniel took a deep breath and listened. Far away, he thought he heard a faint humming, like music, but when he tried to find the sound, it stopped. He checked his radio, but there was only static. He was alone, or so he thought. As he searched for supplies, Daniel found that his food was low and his water was almost gone. He needed to find shelter, but the planet looked dead. He walked away from the ship, holding a small flashlight. With every step, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Suddenly, Daniel saw something on the ground. It was a pattern, made of smooth white stones, forming a perfect circle. In the center, someone had drawn a strange symbol, a spiral, with lines running through it. Daniel had never seen anything like it. It was too perfect to be natural. He knelt down and touched one of the stones. It was warm, almost alive. Daniel felt a sudden rush of energy through his hand. His mind filled with flashes of an alien city. A tall figure in a cloak, 1,000 lights in the sky. Then, as quickly as it started, the vision was gone. Daniel shook his head. Was he dreaming? Was the air making him sick? He stood up and looked around. Now the sky was darker, and the colored clouds seemed closer. Daniel's heart beat faster. He knew he was not alone. As he walked farther, he found more symbols on rocks on the side of a broken wall, even burned into the dirt. Each one was different, but all had the same spiral in the middle. Daniel felt like he was being led somewhere. Step by step, deeper into the unknown. At last, he reached a hill covered in strange black stones. On top was a ruined building, half buried in the dirt. The stones were cold and smooth, covered in writing he could not read. Daniel stepped inside, shining his light on the walls. The inside was dark, but in the center was a single chair made of shining crystal. As Daniel approached, a soft voice echoed in the darkness, speaking in a language he could not understand. The voice was calm, but powerful. It repeated the same words over and over. Suddenly, Daniel felt a pressure in his head, like someone was pushing thoughts into his mind. He dropped to his knees, holding his head. Then, the voice changed. Now it spoke in English, slow and careful. Before you make, you must be still. Before you build, you must be silent. Daniel looked around, terrified. "Who are you?" he shouted. "What do you want?" There was no answer, only the same message, again and again. Be still, be silent, sit and listen. Daniel, shaking and cold, sat in the crystal chair. As soon as he did, the room seemed to fill with soft light. The spiral symbol glowed on the floor. The strange feeling of being watched grew stronger. But this time, it was gentle, not scary. A shape appeared in the light, a shadow with bright, shining eyes. It watched Daniel, but did not speak. The silence was heavy, but Daniel felt a little safer. He closed his eyes and tried to calm his mind. Outside, the wind howled and the colored clouds twisted above. But inside, Daniel sat quietly, not moving, waiting for anything to happen. Just before he fell asleep, the voice spoke once more, soft as a whisper. The rule must be followed. Meditate, and you may survive. Daniel's eyes snapped open. The shape was gone. The room was dark again. He was truly alone. Or was he? As the night grew colder, Daniel realized he had a choice. Listen to the strange rule, or ignore it and risk everything. He looked at the spiral glowing under his feet and whispered, "What is this place? Who are you?" No answer came. Only silence, but somewhere, hidden in the darkness, someone or something was listening. Asterisk the alien instructor, the room was cold and silent. Daniel sat in the crystal chair, his body tense, eyes wide open. The strange voice was gone. The spiral on the floor was no longer glowing. For a moment, Daniel wondered if he had only imagined everything. Maybe it was just fear and exhaustion. But suddenly, Daniel felt a gentle breeze pass over his face. It was soft, almost like a hand brushing his hair. He looked up, and in the shadows near the wall, he saw movement, just a flicker, like a shadow moving behind a door. He jumped to his feet, heart racing. "Who's there?" Daniel called, his voice shaking. From the darkness, a figure stepped forward. She was tall and thin, with smooth silver skin that caught the little light in the room. Her eyes glowed softly, blue like calm water. She wore a long robe that shimmered like the sky before dawn. Daniel had never seen anything like her before. The figure did not speak right away. She watched Daniel with kind but careful eyes, as if she was studying him. Finally, she raised her hand, palm open. In her hand was a small, glowing stone shaped exactly like the spiral Daniel had seen everywhere. Daniel tried to speak, but his voice stuck in his throat. The figure spoke first. Her voice was soft, but carried a strange power. Every word was clear, as if she was speaking straight into his mind. "I am called Lyra," she said. "I am the instructor." Daniel swallowed. "Hard instructor." "Of what?" Lyra's lips curved into a small, mysterious smile. "Of life, of creation, of the rule." Daniel took a step back. "What is the rule? Why am I here?" Lyra's eyes shone brighter. "On this planet, nothing is made in chaos. Before you build, before you make, you must first be still. You must meditate, so your mind is clear. Only then can you create safely. That is the rule. Break it, and darkness will come." Daniel felt a chill run through his body. He remembered the shadowy creature from his vision, and the way his shelter had collapsed. He looked at Lyra, searching for answers. "Why me? I don't belong here. I'm not a builder or a leader. I just want to go home." Lyra shook her head slowly. "The planet chose you. Only those who listen can hear its call. If you wish to survive, you must learn." Daniel's hands were shaking. He looked around the empty temple. "I don't know how to meditate. I'm not good at sitting still." Lyra stepped closer and placed a glowing stone in Daniel's hand. It was warm, pulsing gently like a living heart. "Close your eyes," she said softly. "Breathe in. Let your thoughts pass like clouds. Listen to the silence. If your mind wanders, come back to your breath." Daniel sat down on the floor, crossing his legs as best he could. He closed his eyes, feeling foolish. He tried to breathe slow and deep, just as Lyra said. At first, his mind raced with worry about his ship, his family, his fear of being alone. But slowly, the warmth of the stone and the calm in Lyra's voice helped him. Time passed strangely. Maybe it was minutes, or maybe hours. Slowly, Daniel's thoughts began to fade. For a brief moment, he felt peacy, feeling he hadn't known since leaving Earth. But then, suddenly, dark images flashed through his mind. He saw the planet covered in black vines. He saw giant shadows moving in the mist. He saw himself lost, alone in a cold forest. He gasped and opened his eyes. Lyra was sitting across from him, watching carefully. "You see the danger now?" she said quietly. "This planet remembers everything. Your fear, your anger, they can become real here. That is why you must meditate. If you don't, your darkness can take shape." Daniel felt sweat on his forehead. "Is that what happened to the last people here?" he asked. "Did they break the rule?" Lyra nodded. "Long ago, many came. They built quickly, thinking only of power. They did not listen. Darkness took them, and the planet became silent." Daniel stared at the spiral stone in his hand. It was no longer glowing. "What happens if I fail?" "The darkness will grow," Lyra said, her eyes sad. "But if you learn the rule, you can shape the world around you. You can heal, you can build, and you can even help others. The choice is yours." Suddenly, a loud crack echoed from outside the temple. Daniel jumped to his feet. Lyra stood too, her robe shining in the dim light. She turned her face to the door. "Someone else has come," she whispered. "This is only the beginning." Daniel felt a wave of fear and excitement. He was not alone on this planet. There were others, maybe more humans, or maybe something else. Lyra looked at him, her voice calm but urgent. "You must decide now. Will you follow the rule, or will you bring chaos?" Daniel looked out at the strange, wild planet beyond the temple door. He thought about his family, about his broken ship, about the strange vision he had seen. He closed his eyes, clutching the spiral stone. "I will try," he said quietly. Lyra nodded. "Good, because soon your test will begin." The temple grew quiet again. Outside, the sky flashed with colored lights, and shadows moved across the hills. Daniel knew his journey had just begun. He was not sure if he was ready, but he would try. The first lesson morning came slowly to the lonely planet. Daniel sat outside the ruined temple, feeling the cold wind on his skin. The colored clouds drifted above, painting the empty sky. For a while, Daniel just stared at the horizon, wondering what would happen next. He felt smaller than ever before. Inside the temple, Lyra waited for him. She sat perfectly still, eyes closed, her long robe shining softly in the weak sunlight. Daniel watched her for a moment. She looked peaceful, almost like she belonged to the stone and the silence. He wondered if he could ever feel that calm. He walked inside, trying not to disturb her. As soon as he stepped over the spiral on the floor, Lyra opened her eyes. "Are you ready?" she asked. Daniel nodded, though his heart was heavy. "I guess so, but I keep thinking about my ship, about Earth. I don't know how to just let those thoughts go." Lyra gave a gentle smile. "The mind is like the wind. You cannot stop it, but you can let it pass. Sit with me, Daniel." He sat down beside her. She placed the spiral stone between them, and it began to glow with soft light. Lyra closed her eyes, breathing slow and deep. Daniel tried to copy her, but his mind kept racing. He remembered his wife and daughter waving goodbye at the spaceport. He remembered the garden he'd made on the roof of their small apartment. Then he remembered the crash fire, fear, and pain. The memories made his heart ache. "Let the thoughts pass," Lyra whispered. "Do not fight them. Watch them, then let them go." Daniel tried. It was not easy. Sometimes he felt like crying. Sometimes he wanted to run away. But slowly, the glow of the stone and the calm sound of Lyra's breathing helped him as he sat, Strange things began to happen. Daniel felt a warmth spread through his chest. His thoughts slowed. The world seemed too quiet. The air tasted sweeter. He heard a sound like water flowing over stones. He saw in his mind the shape of a tree, strong green tree, growing. In the gray dust outside, suddenly, Daniel's eyes snapped open. He looked out the temple door. There, in the same place he had pictured, a small tree was growing. Its leaves shimmered with drops of silver dew. Daniel's mouth fell open. "Lyra, did I do that?" Lyra opened her eyes, her expression soft, but proud. The planet hears your mind when it is calm, created with your thought. This is the first lesson. Daniel stood up, walking to the tree. It was real. He could touch the leaves, feel the smooth bark. In that moment, Daniel's fear faded a little. He turned back to Lyra, hope growing inside him. "Can I make more things?" he asked. "Can I use my thoughts to change this world?" Lyra nodded. "But you must be careful. The mind can create, but it can also destroy. That is why the rule exists. Only a peaceful mind should build. Only a calm heart should shape life here." Daniel knelt by the tree, thinking about what else he could do. But just as he began to hope, a dark shadow passed across the sun. The temperature dropped. Daniel shivered. Suddenly, his vision blurred. The world tilted, and he saw strange images in his mind, flashes of things that had not happened yet. He saw the tree, grown tall, but with black vines choking its branches. He saw a storm of shadows sweeping over the hills. He saw himself standing alone in the ruins, calling for help, but no one answered. He gasped and clutched his head. Lyra hurried to him, her face full of concern. "You saw the warning." Daniel nodded, struggling to speak. "I saw darkness, vines, storms. I saw myself alone, calling for help. What does it mean?" Lyra looked at the new tree, her face serious. "The planet is giving you a message. Your power is strong, Daniel, but so is your fear. If you do not master your mind, your fear will shape what grows here. Every emotion is a seed. Good seeds make life. Bad seeds bring ruin." Daniel sat in the dust, breathing hard. The hope he'd felt turned to worry. What if I fail? What if my fear hurts this place? Lyra placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Failure is a path to learning, but you must always try. Each time you sit in silence, you get stronger. Each time you face your fear, the darkness grows smaller." Outside, the wind picked up and the sky flashed with purple light. Daniel looked at the tree and saw a single dark vine curling around the trunk. He touched it, feeling its coldness. It was his fear made real. He turned back to Lyra. "How do I stop it?" "Sit again," Lyra said. "Close your eyes. See the vine, but do not run. Face it. Breathe until it fades." Daniel did as she said. He closed his eyes and imagined the dark vine. It twisted and hissed, trying to scare him. But he kept breathing, kept watching. Slowly, the vine grew thinner, then faded to nothing. He opened his eyes. The tree was whole and healthy once more. Lyra smiled gently. "This is the true lesson. You are the maker here, Daniel. What you hold in your mind will shape the world." Daniel touched the tree's leaves, hope returning to his face. For the first time since he had crashed, he believed he might survive, but far away. Deep in the gray hills, something else was watching. A cold, ancient presence stirred, angry at the change. The test was only beginning. Asterisk, testing the roulette pale morning light spilled over the silent hills. Daniel awoke in the shadow of the new tree he had grown, feeling both proud and restless. He looked at his hands and remembered the sense of power from the day before. If meditation and calm thoughts could shape the world, maybe he didn't have to feel so weak and lost. Maybe, Daniel thought, he could fix everything now if he tried hard enough. But the wind was cold, and his hunger was growing. His ship was broken. He needed shelter, food, and warmth. Every minute wasted in meditation felt like danger coming closer. Daniel hurried back to the old crash site, ignoring the gentle calls of Lyra behind him. She called out, "Remember the rule, Daniel. Don't rush, or the darkness will wake." But Daniel was desperate. He dug through the wreckage, grabbing bits of metal and broken plastic. He tried to picture a safe shelter in his mind. But his thoughts were not calm. They raced with fear. He started building with his hands, fitting broken pieces together. He worked quickly, sweating and shivering. "I can do this," Daniel muttered. "I don't need to sit and wait. I just need a roof and a wall, anything to keep the wind out." For a while, it seemed to work. The metal scraps formed a shaky little hut, barely big enough for one person. Daniel crawled inside and sighed with relief. "See," he told himself, "I can make things the old way. I don't need magic rules." But as night fell, the wind howled louder. The sky above turned dark purple, and the colored clouds twisted into strange shapes. Daniel felt a prickling on the back of his neck. He looked outside and saw shadows dancing between the rock's long, thin shapes, silent and fast. Suddenly, a sharp crack split the air. The shelter shivered, and Daniel heard the sound of scratching just outside the metal. He held his breath. The wind grew colder, almost icy. From the corner of his eye, he saw something move, just a blur at first. Then clearer. A dark, thin creature pressed its face to the broken window, eyes glowing like fireflies. Its mouth was wide, but silent. Daniel scrambled back, heart pounding. He realized with horror that the creature looked like it was made from black vines and broken metal, the very things he had feared and touched while building. The hut began to shake. The roof creaked and snapped. Daniel shouted, "Leave me alone!" But the shadow only pressed closer. Suddenly, the shelter collapsed. Daniel tumbled out into the dust, rolling and coughing. The dark creature lunged at him, but stopped at the edge of the spiral stones that still circled the temple's yard. It hissed, shrinking away from the soft glow of the spiral pattern. Lyra appeared, calm but serious. She stood between Daniel and the shadow. Her eyes glowed bright blue as she raised her hands. "You did not follow the rule," she said quietly. "You let fear build for you. Now your fear has come alive." The shadow creature writhed and twisted. Lyra closed her eyes and began to hum softly, a calm, slow sound. The spiral stones glowed brighter. Daniel felt the tension in the air fade, and the creature shrank into the ground, vanishing in a puff of cold mist. Daniel sank to his knees, trembling. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I just wanted to survive." Lyra knelt beside him. "Oh, fear is not wrong, Daniel, but on this world, your fear is powerful. If you ignore it, it becomes real. If you rush, you build with your darkness, not your hope." Daniel looked at the ruined hut. It was only a pile of twisted metal now. "What should I do?" he asked, voice small. Lyra placed the spiral stone in his hand. "First, you must sit. Listen to your breath. Let your fear speak. Face it, and then let it pass. Only then can you build a home that lasts." Daniel sat with Lyra as the night grew quiet. He closed his eyes, breathing slowly. At first, the images of the shadow creature filled his mind, but he didn't run from them. He watched the fear, felt it, then let it go. The world felt softer. Safer when Daniel opened his eyes. The sky was lighter. The first warm rays of morning touched the broken ground. Daniel picked up a small stone and placed it in the spiral. This time, he imagined a safe shelter, a place of peace, not fear. Slowly, stones and bits of metal rose and fit together, guided by calm thought. A simple, strong shelter took shape, nothing fancy, but warm and real. Daniel smiled for the first time in days. Lyra watched with approval. Now you understand. The rule is not just for the planet, it is for you, too. It protects your mind as much as the world. Daniel stood up, feeling hope grow inside him. He looked at Lyra. Thank you. I think I understand now. But what about the darkness outside the spiral? Will it come back? Lyra's face grew serious. As long as you follow the rule, you are safe. But others may come. Not everyone believes in the rule. You must be ready to teach them more, face more shadows. In the distance, the colored clouds gathered and darkened. The world was still full of danger, but Daniel was not afraid. He had learned the power of the rule. He had found his first bit of peace, but far beyond. Hidden in the hills, another signal. Blinked a sign that strangers were coming. Strangers who did not care about the rule. Daniel's real test was only just beginning. Asterisk, the humans gifted Daniel's new shelter stood beside the spiral stones, strong and warm. Sunlight poured through a small window he had shaped with careful thoughts. Inside, the air smelled fresher miracle on this gray planet. The tree he had grown outside swayed gently, its leaves shining with morning dew. For the first time since the crash, Daniel felt something like home. Each day, he meditated with Lyra. The lessons were slow but powerful. Lyra showed him how to listen to his mind and heart. Every feeling is a seed, she reminded him. What you plant will grow, for good or for harm. Daniel learned to notice his worries, his sadness, and even his hope. He pictured a safe place, and it slowly became real. Soon, Daniel wanted to do more. He remembered the beauty of earth gardens, flowers, laughter with friends. This world was lonely, but it didn't have to stay that way. With careful meditation, Daniel shaped a tiny garden next to his shelter. Small blue flowers bloomed, and green vines climbed smooth rocks. Lyra watched quietly, her eyes gentle and full of pride. You learn fast, Daniel, she said one afternoon. You bring new life to this place. No one has created beauty here. For a long time, Daniel smiled. Thank you, Lyra. I want you to have something too. You've given me peace and hope. He spent the next day meditating, thinking about kindness and friendship. He pictured a crystal flower, glowing softly like the spiral stone. When he opened his eyes, it was their gift for Lyra. She accepted it with a soft smile and tucked it into her robe. But Lyra's eyes grew sad as she looked at the hills beyond the garden. Not all who come to this world will follow the rule, she warned. Some believe only in speed and power. If they do not listen, they can bring harm. Daniel grew quiet. He remembered his first night, the fear, the cold, and the shadows that had almost destroyed him. Can you teach them? He asked. Lyra shook her head. Some will not want to learn, but you must try, Daniel. You are proof that change is possible. Suddenly, a loud beeping echoed through the quiet garden. Daniel rushed to his shelter. His broken ship's communicator was flashing a weak signal, blinking red. Someone was near, sending out a message. Daniel and Lyra climbed a hill and looked across the empty land. In the far distance, bright lights flashed. A second ship, bigger, newer, landed with a deep, echoing rumble. The earth trembled beneath their feet. Daniel's heart pounded. He remembered Lyra's warning. Not all will believe in the rule. As they watched, 3 figures stepped out of the ship. They moved quickly, wearing shining armor and carrying strange tools. Their voices were loud, full of laughter and orders. Daniel couldn't understand their words, but he saw how they walked, confident, careless, always rushing. The new arrivals spread out, scanning the ground with blinking devices. One of them pointed at the sky and laughed, firing a tool in two. The clouds, lightning burst overhead, making the air smell of burning metal. They dragged heavy machines from their ship, crushing rocks and carving lines in the earth. Lyra's face was full of worry. They do not see the life here. They do not listen. Daniel felt his fear return. What if these strangers destroyed the garden? What if they brought the darkness back? But deep inside, he also felt a new strength. He had learned the rule. He had shaped life, and now he wanted to protect it. He looked at Lyra. What should we do? Lyra placed the crystal flower in his hand. You must teach them, Daniel. Show them what you have learned. They may not listen, but they must be given the chance. Daniel walked down the hill, his heart racing. The newcomers turned as he approached. One stepped forward, tall and proud, her armor shining bright. She pointed a strange device at Daniel, scanning him from head to toe. Who are you? She demanded, her voice sharp. Daniel took a deep breath. I am Daniel. I live here now. Please, be careful with this world. It is alive, and it remembers what you do. The strangers laughed. Alive. This place is just rocks and dust. We'll build what we want. No rules, no waiting. Daniel tried to stay calm. If you rush, you'll bring darkness. I've seen it. Please, let me show you another way. The leader snorted. We don't need help from a lost gardener. Out of our way. Daniel looked back at Lyra on the hill. She nodded, silent and strong. He remembered the lessons, the power of calm, the danger of fear. He would not give up, not now. As the newcomers began to build, the ground shook. The sky grew darker, swirling with angry clouds. Daniel stood tall. He would protect his new home. And he would try to share the rule even if the others would not listen. Far away, deep under the ground, the shadows stirred again. Daniel could feel their cold breath on the wind. The real test had arrived, and everything he loved was now at risk. Asterisk. The challenge the new arrivals wasted no time. As the morning sun climbed higher, the strangers unloaded more machines from their ship. Metal claws scraped the ground, tearing up rocks and soil. Engines roared, echoing across the empty hills. Daniel watched from the edge of his garden, fists clenched. The piece he had worked so hard to build now felt fragile, ready to break. Lyra stood beside him, silent and still. The crystal flower in her robe glowed faintly, its light dimming as the noise of the machines grew louder. They are deaf too. The planet? She whispered. They cannot feel its warning. The leader of the newcomers, a woman named Captain Moreau, shouted commands. Her crew rushed about, building platforms, digging trenches, and setting up tall metal towers that crackled with blue energy. They moved quickly, laughing and pushing aside anything in their way. They trampled Daniel's flowers and broke the small tree he had grown with such care. Daniel's anger boiled. He wanted to shout, to beg them to stop, but the words caught. In his throat, the newcomers would not listen. They only saw a planet to conquer, not a living world with its own rules. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. Small cracks snaked across the dirt. The sky darkened, thick clouds swirling above the machines. Captain Mara laughed and raised her tool toward the storm. We'll clear the skies and finish before sunset. But as her machine fired, a blast of cold winds swept over the camp. Shadows stretched across the ground, growing longer, darker, twisting between the workers' feet. One of the crew slipped and fell, shouting as something cold brushed his arm. The others laughed, but their voices were nervous now. Lyra turned to Daniel. The planet is warning them, but they do not listen. The darkness will grow. Daniel's heart raced. He remembered his own shadow creature, born from fear and impatience. Now, these newcomers were making something far worse. He had to do. Something he ran toward Captain Mara, waving his arms. "Please, stop. You're making it worse. You have to slow down, meditate, even just for a minute." Captain Mara sneered. "Meditation. This is not a story for children. We have work to do. Move aside before you get hurt." Daniel tried to stand firm, but Mara's crew pushed him aside. "Go back to your cave," Gardener 1 shouted. "Let the adults work." Suddenly, the ground shook harder. A deep rumble rolled under their feet. The cracks widened. Black vines burst up from the earth, coiling around the machines. The sky above turned almost black, and icy wind howled through the camp. The shadows became thick shapes, moving on their own. Screams rang out as a shadowy creature, taller than any human, with burning red eyes rose from the earth. It lashed out, tossing machines aside like toys. The crew ran in all directions, dropping tools and stumbling over rocks. Daniel ran back to Lyra, breathless and afraid. "What can we do?" he shouted over the roar of the wind. Lyra's eyes glowed bright. "We must show them the way, together." She took Daniel's hand and led him to the center of the spiral stones. "Sit," she ordered. "Close your eyes. Remember peace." Daniel did as she said, though fear rattled inside him. Lyra sat beside him, humming softly. The spiral stone glowed, and the air around them grew warmer. Slowly, Daniel focused on his breath. He pictured his garden, his tree, the laughter of his daughter back on Earth. He sent out thoughts of calm, of hope, of forgiveness. 7:4. The newcomers who had brought chaos. A soft light spread from the spiral, pushing back the shadows. One by one, the frightened crew gathered around, their eyes wide. Captain Mara stumbled forward, face pale, her confidence broken. "What is this?" she demanded. Lyra spoke, her voice calm and strong. "You cannot force this world to obey. You must listen. You must be still. Only then will the darkness leave." Daniel opened his eyes. "Sit with us," he said gently. "It's not too late. Just try." At first, no one moved. Then, slowly, one crew member dropped to the ground, sitting cross-legged. Another followed. Soon, even Mara sat down, her head bowed. The shadows circled closer, hungry for fear. But as more people joined the circle, the light grew brighter, the air warmer. Daniel felt the planet's heartbeat, slow and steady. Matching his own, the great shadow creature paused, watching the light. With a final howl, it melted away into mist, leaving the camp silent except for the crew's nervous breaths. Lyra stood and faced the group. "You have been given a second chance," she said. "Learn the rule, or the darkness will return." Captain Mara looked at Daniel, her voice shaky. I don't understand. How did you do that?" Daniel smiled, tired but hopeful. "Didn't do it alone. We did it together. Sometimes, to build something new, you have to stop and listen." The wind calmed, and sunlight broke through the clouds once more. Daniel looked at his broken garden, but felt no anger now. He knew it could grow again this time, with help. But deep below the earth, shadows still waited, watching and learning. The final test was coming, and Daniel knew it would take more than calm to save this world. Saving the planet. The sun rose weakly over the wounded land. Smoke drifted from the broken machines. Daniel stood at the edge of the camp, looking out over the mess. Black vines still coiled in the dirt, crushed flowers, cracks in the ground that seemed to go on forever. The planet felt tired. Even the wind was silent. Lyra moved beside him, quiet and thoughtful. Her crystal flower was nearly dark now, the light inside fading. Daniel could feel the weight of her sadness. The newcomers, too, looked shaken. They worked quietly, fixing what they could. Captain Mara walked among her crew, her proud voice softer, her shoulders heavy. That morning, Daniel tried to meditate, but the fear and sadness inside him made it hard to find peace. The spiral stone felt cold. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply, but shadows drifted at the edge of his thoughts. Was it too late? Had they done too much harm? Suddenly, a deep, groaning sound echoed under the earth. The ground shook, stronger than before. Small stones jumped and rolled away. Lyra grabbed Daniel's arm. I started, she whispered. Across the camp, Captain Mara shouted orders. Her crew ran for the ship, but the sky darkened with swirling clouds, and thick black vines shot up, blocking their way. The air turned cold as ice. From the cracks in the ground, shadow creatures began to climb out tall, thin, with glowing red eyes and twisting bodies. Lyra stood tall and called to the newcomers, her voice clear. You cannot run. The darkness comes for all. Only unity. And calm can save us now. Sit with us, trust the rule. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Daniel stepped into the middle of the spiral stones and sat cross-legged. His hands trembled, but he pressed the spiral stone to his heart and closed his eyes. He remembered Lyra's lessons. He remembered his family, his garden, his hopes for home. He let the fear come, but he did not hide from it. Instead, he sent out thoughts of forgiveness to himself, to the newcomers, even to the planet that was hurting. I am sorry, he whispered in his mind. Please, let us heal. One by one, Lyra, Captain Mara, and the rest of the newcomers joined him in the circle. The shadows circled closer, reaching with long, cold fingers, but Daniel kept breathing, kept thinking of hope and peace. As the group sat together, the spiral stone began to glow first softly, then brighter and brighter. The light spread along the ground, tracing the spiral pattern. The shadows hissed and drew back, but some tried to fight the light. Daniel felt their coldness pressing in, but he held his ground, focused on calm. Lyra began to hum, a gentle sound like a lullaby. The others followed, humming softly, voices blending together. The air grew warmer. The vines shivered and shrank. The shadow creatures howled, twisting and fading into thin smoke. The cracks in the ground began to close. The plants that had been crushed slowly straightened, new leaves opening. The dark clouds parted, letting sunlight pour down. The spiral stones glowed with golden light, pushing the last of the darkness away. Daniel opened his eyes. The camp was quiet. The wind was gentle. For the first time, the planet felt peaceful. Captain Mara stood slowly, looking at her hands. Is it over? She asked. Lyra nodded, but her eyes were serious. Hachiko, the darkness is always near, but it cannot win when hearts are calm and minds are clear. This is the true power of the rule. Daniel stood and looked around. The newcomers' machines were broken, but the land was healing. The tree he had grown now stood taller, with blossoms shining in the morning sun. Mara walked over to Daniel, her face open, her pride gone. You saved us, she said quietly. You and this rule. I want to learn. Daniel smiled, feeling a deep peace. We all saved each other. We listened. That's the start. The crew began to help him and Lyra clean up the camp. They gathered stones to repair the spiral. They planted new seeds in the garden. Together, they worked in silence and harmony, each move thoughtful and slow. Later, as the sun climbed higher, Lyra placed the glowing spiral stone into Daniel's hands. You have learned what many never do, she said. You have made life with hope, not fear. Now you are ready to carry this rule to other worlds, to teach others how to listen and build with peace. Daniel looked at the sky, feeling ready for whatever would come next. He remembered the fear and the darkness, but also the light they had made together as the planet healed, Daniel knew he was no longer just a survivor. He was a creator, a teacher, a guardian of the rule. And as the stars blinked above, Daniel understood the real power was not in fighting or building fast, but in stopping, listening, and creating together, human, alien, and planet alike. The end.